kids need you to be present. So coming home and being cranky or going vegging out and scrolling on your phone or playing video games or locking yourself in a room on a TV and being like grunting at your people, that's going to create far more problems for you than not being there on the holidays or not being there. Presence. Be aware of your presence in the present. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness podcast. We are into a new month and a new topic, and we are coming around. I don't know if you've been to a store lately, but the music's changed. Mariah Carey has taken over the airwaves. We are now talking about navigating holiday stressors. So the first stress is the day after not even the day after Halloween, 3 weeks before Halloween, we hit Christmas. That's a stressor. We'll talk about that. But hi, guys. Welcome. I am your host, Tami Sharp. I am joined by Chris Zamora, our chief of staff, Greg Nottingham, and they've been on a lot, so I'm going to let you guys just do a 2-second intro, and then the lovely Miss Brenda will do her introduction.
Yeah, Chris Zamora, retired from Arizona, law enforcement for 23 years, and CEO with law enforcement coaching.
Thanks, guys. Greg Nottingham, retired 31 years in law enforcement with the local sheriff's office here in Arizona, and chief of staff at law enforcement coaching.
Brenda Nottingham. I am wife of Greg Nottingham. I have worked in law enforcement for 41 years now, 2 different agencies, and all a civilian capacity.
41 years?
41.
We always think that Greg's impressive with his 32, but you're trumping. You're winning.
Right.
All right. So I wanted you guys on here, and I wanted to kick this series off with this group right here because you guys have been through it. You have been through decades of navigating the holiday stressors when it comes to working in law enforcement. In true fashion, I always try to set the baseline. What are some of the biggest pain points in early on that you guys experienced during the holidays?
Kids, not being around the kids during the holidays, missing out on all the kids' stuff, and just the different call outs, the different duty assignments, the different work schedules, and you have to work Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and you miss out on a lot of what's happening. So the kids mostly, yeah.
Trying to plan through that and coming up with plan A, plan B, okay, relying a lot on family if it was a time where we were both working the holidays. And I think it was important for us not to take the holiday away from the kids because of our work schedule. So we arranged it with family the kids could still celebrate with them. And then our celebration was just moved to a different day.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to that too. So Chris, what about you? So early in your career, you were just young, doing whatever you wanted.
Yeah, well, I was single for about half my career. Excuse me. And so sometimes I would work the holidays, which wasn't a big deal because I didn't have, I wasn't married, didn't have any kids. So the days that I did have off on the holidays were actually kind of lonely because I would just be home alone, right? And I remember one Thanksgiving, like I had no plans because I was going to work the night shift that night. So I went to KFC, and the KFC was open. I went and got a KFC meal, and I remember I was at home by myself eating and thinking, this is pretty darn sad that I'm sitting here by myself on Thanksgiving, and that was probably the loneliest Thanksgiving I ever had. But on other days, on other years, I worked it, and I was fine. But later on, I moved up in in rank, or not rank, but in seniority, so I could actually take those those holidays off. So it wasn't such a big deal later on. But in the beginning, yeah, it was hit and miss, I guess.
Well, no, it's a good perspective too, because I think the number one answer of the stressors are usually around family and the kids, but there is that duality of if you are not with your family, you're not with kids for whatever the reason is, we know that just across the board around Christmas time specifically, days are shorter, it's dark most of the time, people get depressed. There's a lot of overstimulation when you're out and about. If you just try to go out to do anything, it's just madness and people drive like idiots. So that doesn't help anything. That's a whole nother stressor. And then, if you're going home to an empty house or whatever that is, depression and suicide, it's real during the holidays. So I kind of want to hit on a lot of the points. We're going to do a deeper dive as we go through the weeks with this topic. Right now we are in November, not to date the episode for whoever's listening, but this is relevant at any time. We have 2 months before Christmas. I went out. This is why I'm like bitter. I went out the day after Halloween to go get some stuff done. And I was just like, was not expecting the level of Christmas that was happening. It was like, that's it. That's your only option. There was nothing else to buy in the store. It was Christmas everywhere you go. And lines already. So that in itself, remembering to give yourself grace when you're going and dealing, whether you're working or you're just going out shopping or trying to run errands, give yourself extra time, breathe in the car, slow it down, don't have the expectations. If everybody's trying to rush. So the best thing that you can do, you cannot control everybody else. You can control yourself. So giving yourself that little bit of extra time so that you can breathe and not let other people emotionally hijack you. That's my first little tidbit of advice to navigate the holiday stressors. So let's talk about the kids, because that's a big one. What do you do when you're working on the holidays?
I was just going to say that the other flip side of that is we're big on family. We both come from big families. We both come from big families that always celebrated the holidays really big. Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas were just huge in our families, and we try to keep that tradition going where in our lives now. And but the flip side of that is when you are overinvested or you're over dedicated and you want to work and you want to be the one, if you're on call, you want to be the one that gets called out. I want to get called out, but I don't want to miss Christmas. I want to get called out, but I don't want to miss Thanksgiving. So it's really a tug of war between family and work, and wanting to be there and be the go-to guy, but also knowing that you have to be there and be the go-to guy for your family as well.
So how did you process that throughout the years? Like, how did you find that balance?
It was tough. It was tough all through my whole career. Younger years where you're the rookie and you have to work all the holidays, and then as you gain seniority and you move to different divisions and different assignments, you are on call, and I spent a lot of time on call. I can tell you, here, even in Arizona, it snows, surprise. We've had a couple of north of Phoenix, just a little ways north of Phoenix, and still in Maricopa County. We had a lost hiker in a snowstorm, and it was on Christmas Day. And so Brenda and the kids load up the car and head to Grandma's house for Christmas Day, and I have to jump in my work truck and head up north to go search for this lost hiker, and in a snowstorm. So it's great that I'm the go-to guy and I get to go do that, but now I'm missing all the family stuff, and it's just you have to learn how to be okay with it, and you have to learn how to make up for the time that you miss with your family if you can.
Well, and I think expectations are a huge part of the problem that can easily be shifted and reframed. If you expect the big family get together on Christmas Day and, this is the tradition, this is how we always do things, and this is the way it's got to be, and we got to da 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 da, and then it doesn't happen, now you're disappointed, you're heartbroken, you're devastated, and you're going to let it ruin whether you let it ruin your day or you let it put a chink in your relationship. or you're just trying to process it, there's so much that goes into the expectation. And so I'm going to speak to the audience on that really quick, because I was a child of an officer, an outpost deputy who was on call 24/7, saying, like Greg, where it's like Christmas Day, the odds of getting called out, guaranteed. It's not even a high percentage, guaranteed going to get called out all the time. And, many times there were plates of food like, gotta go. Okay. As a kid, and I've said this before, I don't remember the times that he wasn't there. I remember the times that he was, because he made it count when he was. I remember opening presents. Do I remember the day? No. I don't know if it was actually on Christmas. So there's levels to it. If you have kids, the first thing besides the expectation is to let go of the guilt. Let go of the guilt that you're not there. Make it count when you are. Brenda, what were you going to say something?
I was, and I think, and we say this to incoming new officers too, if you don't have that support system with the other half or whoever the significant other is, it's going to make it that much harder on you as an officer. And when there is that support system, it's okay. If you get a call out, go do your job. We're okay. We'll be fine. As compared to, darn it, why are you doing this job? You can't leave. It's Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't do justice on both sides. So I think it's just a mental fix, that it's not just these guys that have to be okay with, hey, I'm on call, I've got to call it, I've got to go. It's being the significant other and knowing this is probably going to happen and I'm going to have to be okay with that.
And this is probably a good topic, not only for the officers, how to let go of some of that guilt and how to make sure that you make it up to the family and the kids, but more to the spouses and the significant other, where, I got really lucky because I married somebody in law enforcement. And so she understands, and this wasn't something new to her. She understands call outs and the demands of the job. And she helped me work through those, where if you get somebody that, maybe your spouse has no idea what law enforcement is, and it's gonna really change your dynamic, and you need to be able to understand that and help support the officer, and not add more guilt and stress.
More guilt and more stress. So I think that's a really important topic, because for the spouses and significant others that are new into the whole world of first responders, it's culture shock. It's, and it takes time. And there is no training. We've talked about this. There's no training how to be a law enforcement or first responder spouse. You just trial by fire, figure it out. You sit there with your plate of food as they walk out the door, and you're like, I have to figure out how to process all of that and cope with the kids and the family asking, where's so and so, why is he not here, is he, all of these different layers, right? There's no support and there's no training. So here we are, little planting the seed here of giving you as much as we can. So yes, we are going to help the officers navigate some of the stressors of the holiday, but really it's the family time. So this is really going to be geared towards the spouses, I think, and the family a little bit more, just to have that understanding, pulling the curtain back and understanding it's not, there's so many different factors and nuances to it, but putting yourself, I understand you want this, white picket fence type envision of a snowy white Christmas and it's perfect. Let's get a little bit, we're not a Hallmark movie. If you're in the first responder field, it's not Hallmark. Sorry. But it is purpose driven, and you got to understand too, if your first responder goes out the door, you don't have to go doom and gloom, worst case scenario that they're in danger. You can think of it as they're going to go help another family on Christmas, where if they're calling, they're not calling because they want to say Merry Christmas, here's your, turkey leg and present. It's because they're having a bad day. And that's another dynamic as well, is when you get around family. That's fun. Depending on who your family is. So the odds are your Leos, your officers are typically going to be going to help try to navigate somebody else's family drama. The last thing they need is to try to be worrying about their own family drama.
Oh, I think you're right. The educating the spouse, the significant other on this, because some of them I can see some of them saying, "This is not what I signed up for. Marrying a cop, this is not what, nobody told me about this." What they have to understand is it's temporary. Just because they miss Christmas or Thanksgiving this year doesn't mean they're going to miss it next year or the year after or the year after, right? This is a 20 plus year career. And typically, the more years that your officer has on, the more seniority they have, less likelihood they're going to work those holidays. Usually, those are reserved for the newer officers and experienced officers. So just having that mindset, but preparing for it, just knowing, okay, there is a potential you could get called out. And Tammy's right. You're getting called out because somebody needs you, right? Something happened and it's on a holiday. So how, if you think you're having a bad day, chances are there's probably somebody else having a worse day. So just understand, yes, your loved one might get called out, but make the best, especially if there's kids involved, make the best of it for those kids so that those kids can remember something positive. Like Tammy, like you said, you remember the times that your dad was there, right? What if your mom was like, you know, yelling obscenities every time he left on a holiday? What are your chances? What are you going to probably remember that negative stuff, right? So yes, for the kids, do something positive. Keep it positive.
Well, the other thing with that too, I hear this a lot. I've talked about it in previous, I think on other people's podcasts, but this is one of my little pet peeves. If you are in a serious relationship or you're married to your first responder person, male, female, it doesn't matter. If you say that you are a single parent, I understand where the sentiment is coming from. I understand that it feels like you are a single parent because you're doing the brunt of the parenting while they are out doing their job. And there's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of miscommunication, not even miscommunication, just zero communication on what these worlds look like and what's going on. And then it ends up in just burnout and frustration. And then we get the miscommunication. But before you can get to miscommunication, there's a whole baseline that's not getting set in the beginning. So please, if you are a parent in a relationship, healthy relationship with a first responder, please shift your mindset. You are not a single parent. That is disheartening to not only yourself, that's putting energy to the kids. I'm a big woo-woo person when it comes to manifesting, and what you focus on, you get. So the more you say it, the more that energy is going out. So is that really what you want? And then what kind of, that pressure that you're putting, or again, we bring the guilt on. So now your first responder is walking out the door to go be of service and help the public, help people navigate their really shitty days. And now they feel when you and the kids are the world. That's why they're going out. They're getting a paycheck to serve and protect the community and you. And then you're like, well, I'm a single parent. That's a huge slap in the face to your first responder. And they're not going to, they might say it, they might not, you might fight, they might just shut down. It's going to hurt. So what would you guys say on how, given everything you guys have gone through all of this, Brenda specifically, I'm kind of asking you, how would you give the audience some advice of how to shift that mindset that they're not single parents when they're in it?
I think it just puts a lot of weight on the first responder. And like you said, a lot of guilt. It's just making the time that you do have with them on their days off the most important. There are many times where we didn't celebrate Christmas on Christmas, like you said, opening presents. You didn't know what day it was. You just knew that your family was together and you were opening up presents.
And the thing is, if you go back through your scrapbook, well, I mean, we don't do scrapbooks, we do phones now, but if you have a scrapbook or you have your pictures a few years ahead, you're not going to remember that it wasn't the actual date. You're going to remember, the kids specifically are going to remember what's the memory that was encaptured in that picture. They're not going to remember what day. So don't worry about the date. Hey, Greg, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and for the first responder, I woulda, shoulda, coulda. I wish I would have done better during my career at supporting my wife and appreciating the work that she did, knowing that she did the brunt of the work, and when I was gone doing the job, but appreciate your spouse, appreciate what they're doing to keep the family running, and show that appreciation. I could have done better. I wished I would have done better, and but I think it's important that you take the time. If you tell them that you appreciate what they're doing, that you understand that the workload that they have because of the job that you have, I think that goes a long way into helping them understand what what you're doing is important, and that it's not, and what they're doing is not in vain.
No, I mean, early in the career, you're kind of, you know, you're kind of at the mercy of just the department, right? You're a low man on the totem pole, low woman on the totem pole, and you're going to have to work holidays. But as you get years of service under your belt, some people are still working on holidays. Why? Because of money, right? Yeah, that double time and a half, the holiday pay, whatever it is, they choose to work. And for those people, as long as your significant other has an understanding that it's okay for you to work, why? Because probably you're wanting that extra money for the holidays, right? To buy presents and what have you. And that's cool. Because, a lot of the DUI task force happens, right around, Thanksgiving,
Getting through New Year's.
November, December, all the way into the new year, right? And so there's a lot of people that have signed up for that DUI task force to get that extra money. But just keep in mind, you want to have a healthy balance there. You don't want to always be gone, especially during the holiday season. But I understand sometimes you want to earn that extra money for presents for the holidays, right? So I get it. Just having that healthy understanding of that. And, for the officer, just make sure to communicate with your significant other that it's okay for you to do this. Because if it was okay for you to do this last year, you might assume that it's okay to do it this year, but you want to make sure that you're okay. So talk to your significant other. Don't just assume that you're going to roll into the next year doing the exact same thing as you did the year before, as you did the year before, and the year before that. Every year, assess, talk to your significant other, make sure that that other person is okay with you doing this, right?
Well, and I would say boundaries on that one as well. So we're all echoing it. So those that are listening, newer officers, newer spouses, new families, it is what it is. Like you're going to have to just kind of accept the suck sometimes. Newer officers are going to work those shifts and accommodate to it. Now you've got in your 5, 6, 7, 8 years in, and you've worked every Christmas. And now maybe you do have a kid and you're like, hey, boss, whoever, I've worked every Christmas. My kid is 3 years old. This one kind of matters to us. Can we please? And understanding, like, again, communication. I don't think we can echo that enough. Communication with the spouse, communication with command, with your leadership at the department, and saying, hey, now sometimes it may not work out, but other times, hopefully the department leadership understands. I will say, going back to the kids, when you have a newborn baby, it's their first Christmas and you have all these expectations, but guess what? They're not going to remember. They don't care. They don't care. So if you have to work Christmas, get your pictures whenever. It can be at 2:00 on a Tuesday, whatever. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Newborn, 2, 3, they're not going to remember. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's the magic window. So if you're able to shift some of it, maybe if you're working Thanksgiving, maybe you're not going to work Christmas Eve or you're going to work Christmas Day. That's in the window where I would say, let's see if there's any wiggle room within your department to have that conversation. 9, 10, 11, they're starting to be like, teenagers, they don't care. For the most part. Let them do whatever. But just, again, having the communication, having those boundaries in place and being firm, and just, again, making your own traditions, your own values. What is it going to be for you? Knowing, hey, we have a first responder family, so we're not going to necessarily do Christmas. I don't even know what day Christmas falls on, but Halloween was on a Friday, so I don't know. But I can say this. Going against the grain and not doing what the mass majority is doing is quite nice. Going out during the weekday to go out for lunch, it's nice out on a Tuesday. Chris and I flew through the airport. We left at like 10:00 on a Thursday one day. Way better than coming home on a Sunday. That was dumb. Anyway, so timing is everything. Make your own.
You bring up a good point, though. I mean, okay, let's say Christmas falls on December 25th, but you have to work. So now you're going to celebrate it December 26th when you're off, right? 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when you look at pictures and it says Christmas of 25, you're not going to remember, oh, wait a minute, that was when we had to do the day. No, because we don't remember dates. What we remember are the good times, the fun times that we had together. That's what the holidays represent, is a time when families come together and you have a good time. The day itself really is insignificant in the long run because we don't remember the day. I pull up and I challenge this to anybody. Pull out a picture, a holiday picture from 20 years ago, and tell me what day of the week it was. Nobody's going to be able to remember that, right? Well, except for Thanksgiving. But aside from that,
Well, I was just going to
But-
say, oh, no, I was going to call you out on that one because Facebook memories will absolutely let you know what day it was, but that's okay.
yeah, but you know what Facebook memory also does? It creates depression. Why? Because they shoot out these dates from years ago. And imagine that. Imagine 10 years ago, Facebook gives you a date. Hey, remember this date, how happy you were? Wow. But sadly, you're going through a divorce at this point. What ends up happening? You go into depression, right? Because that's, I don't know if that was intended for Facebook or not, but it's spitting out a memory from back then. And if you're in a good place today, then that's a great memory. If you're not in a good place today, that can put you into depression, right? Because you're thinking of, I remember back then. I wish it was like it was 10 years ago, right? So we have to be careful too that we don't fall into that Facebook, grossness, whatever you want to call it. No, and I just want to make a legal disclaimer here. I'm not saying Facebook is gross or anything or that it's negative. I'm just saying be mindful of those dates.
Well, and you said the key thing, if you're in a healthy mindset, because when I see the memories, I get all excited about it. I'm like, oh, look at how far we've come. But yeah, if you're not in that healthy place, if you're in a sad thing, it can bring you down. So just being, again, self-awareness and accountability. If you know that you're not in a good space, get off social media, period. No matter what time of year it is, get off social media, go find someone to talk to that's a mental health professional in some capacity or coach, whatever. There was another point that I wanted to come back to, and of course now I'm kind of blanking. For Greg and Brenda, well, Brenda, for you, like, did you have your set schedule or did you get called in on holidays?
Well, in the beginning of my career, I was single. And so I was one of the go-to people where the ones with families would go, hey, can you work Christmas for me? Of course, it's double time and a half. Why not? Um, we were on a rotating basis. Sometimes it was every 6 months, sometimes it was yearly, sometimes it was every 3 months. So we kind of knew ahead of time what holiday we would be working and what we wouldn't be working. And I think depending on the department that you're with, if you're scheduled to work a holiday, if your department allows, have somebody fill in for you and switch shifts for a day. If you feel that you need to be there on Christmas Day with your family and you're scheduled to work, see if somebody will switch with you if it's allowed.
I was-
We just worked it out. And I think it's a matter of remembering you're celebrating an occasion, not a date.
Mhm. And you bring up a good point, Brent. I was going to bring it up, but you reminded me. Yeah, talk to other members of your team or talk to other members of your agency from a different team. Because what I would do is the married guys with families, they knew I was single, so they would come to me and ask me, "Hey, can you work for me on Christmas or whatever?" Because I was single, living alone, I could do that, and I said, "Sure, but would you work Halloween for me?" Because Halloween was my big thing. And they're like, sure, no problem, right? So we would kind of do it that way. Or I'd say, hey, let me have New Year's Eve off because I'm young, I'm single, and I want to be out there, to start the new year. And so sometimes we would work that out. I'd work Christmas and Thanksgiving for this person, and they'd take these for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, even doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about too, not just the actual holiday, but there's a whole bunch of events. There's parties that come up. There's, plays and recitals and all sorts of little things because, I don't know why everybody likes to cram everything in. Just busy, let's make it busier with all this stuff that you got to do. So let's unpack the other events that aren't the big kahuna, big show. If you have, okay, say you have a kid and they have a recital or something, some pageant, something that they're in. If you can go see it, that does matter. They definitely want you there. And if you really cannot be there, first, let go of the guilt. Second, knowing that when you get home, I don't care how shitty of a day you had. I don't care how many bad calls you had. Your kid needs to know that you wanted to be there and they want to share that with you. So what I would say to do, especially if you had a bad one, you again, communicate, communicate with your significant other. I had a really bad day. I need to take some time to decompress. Reach out, talk to a friend, do whatever you need to do to decompress so that when you get home, you can leave it. You can pick that back up. You can pick it back up when you walk back out the door, but your kids need you to be present. So coming home and being cranky or going vegging out and scrolling on your phone or playing video games or locking yourself in a room on a TV and being like grunting at your people, that's going to create far more problems for you than not being there on the holidays or not being there. Presence. Be aware of your presence in the present. Not about Christmas presents, right? So your kids want to know if you missed it, they want to tell you about it. Ask them questions, be curious. And if you have to fake it, then dig deep and fake it. I don't care. That's the biggest thing. That's what's going to stand in your partner, whoever your significant other is. That's what's going to create the resentment is if you don't put any energy into it. And we get it. You're tired, but so are they. And so you got to do whatever you got to do to self-regulate so that you can be there for those moments. What?
Yeah, you need to make sure you let go of the guilt because I struggled with that for years and years, and we've got four kids, all adult kids now, all have families of their own, and there were plenty of parties, plays, whatever that I missed, and carried a lot of that guilt for not being there, and tried to make up for it after the fact by being present when I was there, but I think that if you talk to them now, they would not remember the times I wasn't there. They would remember the times that I was there, and they would remember the times that we were able to share whatever the event was at a different time, and whether it was them being able to tell us about it or talk about it and be excited about it. But you're not going to be able to make all of those soccer games or all of the plays or the recitals. You make the ones that you can, and then you try to make up for the ones that you missed. But let go of that guilt because again, our kids are all grown adults now, have family of their own, and they're all really good people. So I don't know that, I don't think that it affected them a whole lot that the times that I wasn't there.
And that's a good point. Letting go of that guilt, having gratitude, right? If you get called out on a holiday or on somebody's birthday, well, nobody wants that, but be grateful. Have that gratitude that, you know what, I have a career I'm bringing in income for my family to take care of my family, because there are many families out there, and Greg, we've been in this profession long enough. We run into those families that are homeless, that don't have the means to support their family. I mean, those people are really, really struggling. But here we are in law enforcement, we have a career and we have a steady source of income. So have that gratitude. Yeah, don't feel guilty. Don't carry that guilt. But just know you're doing something positive, not just for the community, but for your family as well.
Well, on that note too, don't guilt trip your partner, because what can happen, you're not here for the holidays, you're always working. Well, if you want to afford this nice house and that's where that argument goes every time. If you want all the presents for the Christmas or then I have to. Okay, you're missing each other. If that's the conversation that you're having, and I guarantee somebody that's listening to this is having that conversation, you are missing each other. You're missing the underlying need and desire that the person's trying to communicate. You're both trying to feel seen, heard, and respected. You're trying to feel valued. What you do is valuable. Whoever is listening, whatever side of the coin you're on, if you are a first responder, you are valued. We as a society need you. We appreciate. If we call 911 and nobody's showing up on a really bad day, that sucks. We really appreciate you when we need you. To the spouses the parents specifically, the stay at home or the working, the ones that are taking the brunt of the parenting so that the first responder can go do that, you are appreciated. That is, I'm just going to call the moms. I'm not doing all this gender crap. The moms, the mothers, we have a damn hard job. Dads are great. You guys have a hard job too, but moms, it's also, guys are kind of, not to insult anybody, but guys are like the internet where it's like one browser at a time and women are like 80 tabs at the same time. It's true for the most part. Don't get offended if I trigger somebody.
Offended. I am offended. I'm
What?
offended because
Oh, please.
it's I mean, even us dads, we carry the load. And I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. When I was married and we had, our son, and he was a baby, I was on the homicide unit and I wouldn't sleep at night because if I was on call, or what did I investigate? Deaths of kids, SIDS, and what have you. So I would literally stay up all night watching my son, make sure he was breathing, right? And then my wife at the time would get up, go to work, and if I was off, on these particular days, then I would take care of him. And the moment she would get home, I would hand him to her without even letting her decompress or anything. Like, here you go, because I've been here all day with him and I'm exhausted, right? And then she would do the same with me on those days where I'd come right enough. She'd hand, our son off to me, and then I'd take him because she was exhausted. So, I am a little offended by what you're saying because I was exhausted, and I can't say how much in comparison to her, but I carried a lot of that. I changed diapers, I fed, I did, I did everything I think she did, with the exception of, like, I didn't do any breastfeeding, obviously, but so you got me there. But I carried that too, and I was exhausted. And you've seen video of me, sleeping at work at my desk, because I was always, especially that first year as a dad, like, it was scary. It's a scary time for parents. So I don't know. I kind of took a little offense to that. I'm like, wait, I worked just as hard as she did, I think. Now you can ask her, it might be a completely different story. A different story from her.
Call her and speakerphone her in real quick, see what she has to say. No, I'm not negating the men. I'm not negating anybody. However, parents, females, I'm speaking from my experience. Look, handle a lot. Whoever I don't take the gender out, take the parent, whatever. Whoever the main person is at home. Now, some people might have a really good balance with that within the relationship. For the most part, people that I talk to do not. They are out of balance. There is usually a person that is at home doing the laundry, doing the dishes, cleaning up the house, taking care of the kids, doing the doctor's appointments, having all of the schedules. Little Timmy has soccer practice over here. You have to go to work here. I have to know when you're doing this. I have a doctor's appointment. And all of this dialogue is running. Yes, we have calendars and we have Post-its and all of that, but the typical woman has all of this constantly running in their mind all the time. That alone is exhausting. Let alone doing the overstimulus of, if you have multiple kids, you have a baby, you are breastfeeding. If you're breastfeeding, you win. I'm going to trump Chris on that.
You win. I concede. I concede on that, yes.
But a lot of times there is not even an intentional imbalance within the relationship. But again, it's the lack of the communication and understanding of what the other person's doing. If the person that's at home is doing all of that stuff, I don't know. So I'm going to use Chris and I as an example, hypothetical, that if Chris was still working, I'm at home, changing diapers. Well, I'm not, okay, we'll bring it into modern times. I'm picking up dog shit. We have so many animals. I'm guaranteed there's a mess somewhere. But if he was still active, I wouldn't know what calls he's on. I wouldn't know how bad of a day he has. And this comes back to the officers as well, communicating with your spouses. We talked about this before, so I'm going to reiterate it. A lot of first responders do one of two things. They come home and they isolate. They do not tell their partner anything about their day. They want to decompress. They go process it because they had a really bad day. That gets miscommunicated to the partner because the first responder isn't just isolating and shutting down and shutting them out. They're trying to protect you. They're trying not, especially at the holidays, you're, dealing with soccer games and Christmas parties and presents and all of this stuff. You do not want to hear about the CPR that your partner just did on a baby and it didn't go well. You don't want to hear about that. So they're trying to protect you by shutting you out in that regard. The other thing that an officer typically will do, the flip spectrum, is they will come home and they will share everything and dump it on you. And now as the partner, you're left holding all of that. And if you're new, that's heavy. And what do? Do you carry all of it or do you let it go? And one of the things that I always talk about is be a rock, not a sponge. Don't absorb other people's stuff. You can hear it and let it wash over you. That doesn't mean that you don't care, but you don't need to absorb other people's trauma as your own. There is vicarious secondhand trauma. So, got anything, Chris?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to, I'm done with that subject. I've conceded. But what I will say this is if you, for the officer, if you get called out on a holiday, don't take it out on the situation that you are being called out for. Because I did see that. I saw that at the latter half of my career. I was working patrol. I remember I think it was Christmas Day. And I was working, I'd get off work at 3 p.m. And of course, at 2:30, we have a barricade, right? Suicidal person at 2:30, I'm supposed to get off in half an hour. I'm not going to get off in half an hour. It was a whole SWAT activation. And we had a guy who was armed, barricaded in a house. It's that time of year where people get depressed. And if this person really wanted to kill himself, he probably would have, but he didn't. He called 911 and was threatening to kill himself. Why? Probably because he needed somebody to talk to. He was home alone. It's Christmas. And you got to look at it from that standpoint. Yes, did he take you away from your family? Yes. But look at where this person probably is. Probably not in a good place. And I was kind of upset too. Like, dang it, I'm going to miss, we were scheduled to have dinner and this and that, and that's just not going to happen. And some of the SWAT guys that responded, they were pretty pissed off too, making comments while they were while we were there during this barricade. And it's like, be careful, don't get into that blaming this individual. Yes, that person caused it, but we still have to act professional, and we still have a job to do. And that job is to get this guy to come out, to give up, and to take him into custody as safely as possible. And yes, we're going to be late. Yes, you did get called out away from your family on a holiday, but this is what you signed up for, right? And if you don't want to be on the SWAT, if you don't want to get called out on the holidays, then don't be on the SWAT team. Don't be on a specialty unit, right? You don't need to do that if that's going to be the attitude, right? Because you can't have your cake and eat it too. Yes, there are going to be days where you get called out. Deal with it, but don't take it out on the public.
We're touching on a bunch of different topics. Greg and Brenda, do you have anything that you want to add into the conversation?
Just really quickly, we're talking like the departments are the big evil bad guys here and making you work on the holidays or calling you out on the holidays. They're not always like that. And as a supervisor and as a department in general, on Thanksgiving, on Christmas, if one of my guys or if all of my guys lived close enough, I would always let them rotate through their lunch break for an hour and come off the road. We'll cover everything for you. And they would be able to go home and be with their family for at least an hour and take their lunch break at home, get some Thanksgiving dinner, and then come back. So, for the departments, if you're not doing that, you should probably look at doing that. You're going to make your people a lot happier. And if you're a supervisor, try to make that happen if you can. Try to offer up and if you have married guys with kids on your squad and you have to work Thanksgiving or Christmas, if you can let them go home for a couple hours or for an hour, on their lunch break, let them go home and the rest of you can cover, if it's possible and just be flexible that way.
One of the other things too, especially when kids are involved, if it's possible to do it, but getting a couple of the cop cars, getting the fire truck to come through the neighborhood with the lights, I mean, that's everybody's like, woo, the kids love it. I mean, I got a really unique upbringing where I grew up on Christmas. we had a big Christmas party, like a community Christmas party, but the fire truck, we could go sit on top. So they would decorate it. It would blast Christmas music, and they would go through the neighborhood and pick all of us kids up. And this is in Washington in the mountains. So it was freezing, but it was awesome. But we would get our little candy cane and we'd all sit on the top of the fire truck and ride through the neighborhood and then go get dropped off at the party. And it was super fun. That's one of like my core memories of just awesomeness. So what, Chris?
Well, I was going to say, with the agency that I'm with, with Gilbert PD, our alumni association, they are the best, right? Because on holidays like Thanksgiving, like Christmas, they would actually pay to have food catered. So on Thanksgiving, that we would have, if you were working Thanksgiving, we had a holiday Thanksgiving turkey, mashed potatoes, everything you would have for the officers working that day. So sometimes some of us would eat there, then go home and eat Thanksgiving at home. We'd have 2 Thanksgiving meals, and that was the best, right? Or sometimes like the barricade situation, I called my buddy Dave, who was on the same team. I'd say, hey, fix me a plate of this, because I'm going to be here for a while. Wrap it up, put it in the fridge for me, because I know how cops are. They're going to eat everything. So I would just call ahead, and Dave would do the same, or I'd do the same for Dave. But that's really appreciated, especially if departments allow that, or these volunteer alumni associations that do that. And they'll come in and they'll actually serve the dinner to the officers. Which, think about that. These people are leaving. They're volunteers for the department, and yet they're leaving their families to come to the department to serve the officers that are working Thanksgiving meal or Christmas meal. And so I wanted to thank the Alumni Association for that.
Was that it?
Getting emotional, but
Yeah, I didn't realize that I would get emotional over that.
Oh.
Well, I did because we just wrapped Retirement Realities last month, and that was one of your retirement realities was Thanksgiving after you retired. You were like, I don't get my second Thanksgiving. Crap. And you were trying to figure out how to go get into the PD, calling people, being like, hey, what's going on? Because you were still trying to get that meal. So that did mean something to you.
I think I did call Dave on that day. Even though I was retired, I said, hey, make me a plate. And he was like, wait, are you here? I go, no, but I'll come pick it up. But it is appreciated, especially for those single officers that are living alone, don't have family. That it means a lot. It does. And I didn't realize how much it meant.
This is where you get all emotional and I can't do my job at all. So
is Janet still there? Because Janet was like always there every year.
I don't
She was
remember.
a volunteer.
I think so, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. I'll have to reach out to her and thank her.
Yeah. We'll send them this and be like, you guys made Chris cry. And made Tammy cry. Well,
Appreciate it.
On that, there's a lot of positives that come out of it. We kind of talked about some of the more negative things because we were trying to help people navigate those pain points. But there are a lot of fun memories. There are a lot of positive things. There are the cars that come through and the activities. And, we just went to Gilbert PD's for Halloween. They did their trunk or treat. And so there are positive events that happen. So let's wrap this one up. Instead of giving advice like we normally do, I want you guys to share some of your most positive holiday memories that you had that incorporated the job. Yeah, no pressure.
Wow, yeah.
Make you think.
I would have to go to the being able to go home at, on Thanksgiving and have dinner with my family during my shift. Being allowed to do that. So yeah, that was always pretty positive.
I don't know. The only one that comes to mind, just because it was so, we always remember this, is the one Christmas that we were at family's house for our normal big Christmas celebration with the family, which can be 40 to 50 people. And Greg getting called out in middle of it and having to leave. But to be able to share at least a portion of that with him, and then have him go, like you guys said, help somebody else That was important too. And it was a matter of being able to support him. He was still there for a portion of it, not all of it, but at least we got to experience the portion that we did that evening.
Chris, what about you?
I, what's coming to mind is, I think it was like right towards the end of my career, I was working. Yeah, I think it was Christmas, and I came across this car that was stopped in the road. There was a lady and her mom, and they'd run out of gas, and right there at Elliott and Cooper. And so the gas station is like right there on the corner. So I pushed the car with my bumper of my patrol car, pushed them into, and I told her, pull into the first gas pump because there's like nobody out. There's nobody out. And so I, with my patrol car, pushed it, and she parked it right next to the gas pump. And I filled her gas tank up, and she was so grateful because she was crying when I first talked to her. She's like, I ran out of gas. I don't have any money. I don't know how we're going to get home. I don't know how they're going to do this and this. And it was just stress for her. And so, I filled her gas tank, not a big deal. Right. And she was very grateful, the gratitude that she had. So, I mean, that was a feel good moment. Never told anybody, but this is the first time I'm ever sharing that. But like police, fire, we do that every day across the nation. And we never talk about it because we don't need to. But I think, yes, I had to work on a holiday, but I helped somebody that day. And even if it was just filling up a gas tank, at least I helped somebody. So really focus on those things throughout your career
And
instead
I
of
bet
I
you
have to work.
to
What was
this
that?
day, I bet you to this day, she still remembers that.
You know,
You may see
I
it
hope
as
she
a small
does.
gesture, but it impacted her in her life.
And I hope if she had a negative, you know, look on law enforcement, I hope that changed things. I don't know, but little things like that. I hope it helps that next officer that she encounters, right?
Right.
But they seem like really good people, and it's just down on their luck. It happens.
Well, I think that's just a good awareness for everybody to have, but especially the first responders. Like, yes, you guys are dealing with a lot of stuff, but when it comes to the holidays, everybody is stressed out. We always say, everybody's fighting a battle that you don't know anything about. And if you take that time, especially on Christmas, especially on holidays, you are going to forever help change the trajectory of that person's life by being present, helping them, going above and beyond, being kind. I think that's something that we all need to remember to do a little bit more, especially slow down, be kind, breathe, help other people. And I think that's a huge part. I'm trying to remember all the stories, and I there's so many different things. I was so used to my dad getting called out. Again, that was just par for course. We had a sheriff sign in our front yard, and it was guaranteed he was going to get called out. What I remember about, holidays, specifically Christmas, was, my mom would like to do a bunch of little gifts. My dad's thing was he always got me one big gift. Like I got a boom box one year, and like a big deal gift. That was his thing. And that's what I remember because it was the wow factor. And because there's an emotion attached to it, don't remember anything else. Don't know if he got called out. Don't know if he was there for the rest of the day. I remember that I got something that was like, holy crap, and run into my room and go play for the rest of the day. Like, little things like that. So I think this is a great starting point. I have just received a text that our dog managed to get out of the crate. I locked both locks this time, but he got himself out of the crate and went and helped himself to the treats. So I get to go deal with that. But
Escape artist.
he is. So for everybody tuning in, hopefully you took a little bit of insight. If you're listening to this episode and you're like, hey, you touched on this, but I'd like you to go more like how do we get rid of the guilt? Chris went into it a little bit. Gratitude is the biggest thing. If you are in gratitude, it's almost impossible to be in any other emotion. So practice. What are you thankful for? What are you focus on the positive. If you're stuck and you're in a really negative space and you don't see the positive, or you're new into the law enforcement world and you're like, I don't know how to navigate this, reach out to us. We are going to be running a holiday special. I will be announcing that on social media, but making it very much available to the masses if you need support during the holiday time. So follow us, subscribe, like, do all the things, and until next week.